love the show. I love you guys. Fucking, let's go Jets. Jets, Jets.
We can't all be beautiful.
You're in the danger zone.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Friday night in the Danger Zone with Murph in the building. What is up, my dude?
Hey man, just another feel-good Friday. We got some combine going on. We're about halfway through the combine now, and I think we have a guy coming on later that might know a little bit about combine, might know a little bit about prospects, and I'm pretty excited to get down and talk some ball with him.
Damn straight, man. You are right. You alluded to it. We got the great Dom C joining us. Not too much later either. We will see him here in about 20 minutes or so. So, guys, if you have questions, please submit them in the chat. We will store those for later. But yeah, dude, I can't wait to hear because, I mean, you and me both, we work during the day, man. So, like, there are so many nuggets coming out that we need his help to decipher what is real and what is smoke, if you know what I mean.
No doubt, no doubt. And I need a guy that's gonna. I'm not gonna sit here and say he has the time because I know he's a busy dude, especially this time of the year, man. But he's got a family and everything too. But he still grinds that film, man, as much as anybody. So I'll sit here and be honest with you. I haven't hardly grinded any film yet. So that's why we bringing him on so he can tell us what's up. I sit here, I'll look at my stats, I'll check things out. I might watch a game or two every once in a while, a guy here or there, but to actually sit there and grind the game to game to game, the rep to rep to rep, like that's a different story. And that's why Dom he's one of the dudes, man. So I'm really excited to get on here, talk a little ball with him, pick his brain on some things. Like I might have an idea, like I kind of like this dude, but like, am I seeing, or are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like that's what I want to get to do, man. I want to see what's going on. I want to see what the chat thinks of what Dom's saying. I want to see, where the fan base is, right now, thinking about the Jets draft in
Damn
particular.
straight. Damn straight. There won't be a ton of antics tonight. It's going to be straight X's and O's, man. And if that's what you're looking for, then this is where you want to be. So hit that like button. I see Johnny Boy in the house, man. Just came from his show. He was doing excellent over there, talking ball. I see Sean down there, Harlan in the house. Just know, guys, like, what's great about Dom is he does watch the All 22, man. And just for anyone out there who doesn't know what the All 22 is, like you can literally watch a guy's every game from someone's college career and not see the things that you can see in All 22. And if you picture playing Madden, that camera angle that's behind the quarterback up and down the field. That's what all 22 is. And this guy, Dom, he prides himself on watching that film. You can see, our guys open. Like when you're just watching a game, you can barely even see the safety back there. So, what I will say is, you may have opinions on guys that you watched, but until you watch that all 22, man, you may not know, exactly how good a guy is, and that's what we want to find out tonight. Because, like you said, I haven't dug into a lot of all 22 myself, not yet. We got 2 months, and I will eventually. But, bro, um,
So yeah, hey, the camera angle is huge. Like, let's not play. Like, you can sit here and watch a game and have an idea, but the camera angle shows it all. If you get it right, that's a big deal. And also, like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing necessarily. Like, if you get down, you watch some highlights and stuff like that of players and stuff like that. I do it too. I think everybody does it. That's maybe where you get that first little bit. Like, okay, I see what this guy's bringing to the table. But like, to sit down and watch every rep of them is a whole different thing. It shows you everything, man. Highlights are highlights, and you need to see the lowlights. You need to see it all, man, to properly
facts.
evaluate a prospect. So yeah, it's awesome having somebody on that really puts in the work like that. And I'm kind of intrigued. I haven't watched a whole lot of videos about doing mock drafts and stuff. I watched a few here or there, but kind of intrigued to see what pick Dom's brain to on what he thinks that we could possibly do, what he thinks is a good fit, because that's a big part of it too. Um, and hopefully we can come out of this, all of us, everybody in the chat, me and you, come out of this maybe knowing a little bit more. That's what I
Facts.
expect to do.
You know what? I haven't really gone further than the first round when it comes to the draft so far. And again, guys, we have 2 months, man. And if you've done like 7 round mock drafts already, then you might be burnt out by April. I'm just trying my hardest to pace myself, and really
Okay.
stretch it. Because, dude, it happened last year to us. I don't think there wasn't a person out there that didn't get draft fatigue. We all just glossed over free agency. We went straight to draft coverage. Um, and we're kind of doing it again, but it's just the way things work, I guess. But free agency is around the corner. That'll definitely shape things a little bit. We'll know, at least what needs we have. Not that's how you draft, but like it helps. It helps for sure. Um, we
that's
got
where the that's where the real excitement starts for me, man. Is when the free agency dominoes start dropping and stuff. Because it's not just who you pick up in free agency, it's also who you're dropping, who you're trading, maybe, who you're trading for. That's whenever you start to see, like, once free agency's over, then it's like, oh, okay, the only holes we have left is here, here, and here, and it's like, okay, probably going to look towards that way in the draft or whatever, or maybe it'll be a late free agency pickup. But man, I start getting excited when I start getting all this breaking news and stuff left and right. I'm refreshing Adam Schefter and all those guys on Twitter. I love
facts.
some free agency, but free agency gets me to the point where I love the draft too.
You know what? And that's what I'm like with the free agency. It really plays a part on like day 2 and 3 of the draft. You may not, look at your sole needs in the first round, but like come rounds 3, 4, and 5, you're drafting a little bit for need. So that will be key. We just got an extra $23 million in cap, and we talked about last week how that's not really a big deal, but um, what I will say is that we're going to need a bunch of starters. We are. So I can't wait to hear. Maybe Dom has some free agents that he would prioritize, as well. So, guys, if you have questions about free agency, don't hesitate to throw those in there as well, because Dom is anything but just a one trick pony. So, Definitely sound off down there in the chat. Ricky, good to have you here, brother. I see you chatting down there as well. He said he's been focused on the first 4 rounds, man.
Animal.
Yes,
Ricky.
he is.
I
Damn
knew
straight.
I knew we'd be seeing Ricky tonight because he loves him some draft too, just like a lot of us do. But he really gets into it. I'm excited Ricky's in here to pick Dom's brain with us a little bit.
Facts. The 5th-year option news came out today, and I saw Sauce was tweeting. If you guys haven't seen those, check those out. It's going to be interesting because, like you said, man, fits. What's the best fit for us? It's really hard to determine because we have a new DC, we have a new OC, we have a new head coach, we got a new GM. Like, a lot of moving parts. So maybe Dom has a little bit of insight there because, Wilkes has been around the league. We can kind of figure out what exactly he likes. Also, we got to figure out, are we signing Garrett this offseason? Are we signing Sauce? There's so many nuggets, more than I thought that there would be in late February. If you asked me a couple months ago, I thought we really would have a lull because we would just, be so distasted over the last year. But dude, I think if you're
Never.
anything like me, Daniel, I think you're like me where you're just staying locked in because you want to try to get a head start for this next wave, this next regime. Like you want to get over the hurdle, transition, so to speak, before you can let your hair down. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all gonna have to wine and dine me for me to let my hair down. But the thing I wanted to bring up because we got a little time to kill till Dom gets here. I was watching Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. They both interviewed with Eric Allen right around that combine time when they did their pressers and stuff like that. And those are always good. The guys go check. It's on the Jets YouTube or whatever. Like it's always interesting to listen to the guys talk on there. Um, Something that was a lot of emphasis put on there was they want guys, and I know you hear this stuff around the league here and there and stuff like that, but it's either that's what you're looking for or it's not, but they want guys that are lunch pail guys that are not afraid to put the work in and aren't afraid to take criticism and work on themselves and things like that. Like they want those type of guys, the hard nosed, tough as nails type of players in here. That was about the only thing that they would give up right now because obviously it's so early. They don't want to, free agency's coming up and stuff like that. They're not going to tell you exactly what type of wide receiver they want or what type of, do they like speed? They're not going to tell you that, but like the mentality, they emphasize that big time. And I just wanted to see what you thought of that, Dane. Do you think that's the right move? Do you think they're just blowing smoke? What do you think about those comments?
Man, you know what? If Aaron Glenn wasn't just like that as a player, and if he wasn't 5'9", playing a big boy sport and like carving out a long ass
Yeah.
career, and bro, and then he took a couple years off. He was working on a side business with car dealerships. I bet you any money he was a nose to the grindstone guy doing that. And then he got back in the league and he started scouting and he literally carved out an entire a whole second or third ass career uh, in the front office. Like I think he's being honest. I think that really is what he wants. I think a lot of guys say that, but they may not be about it. I think he's about that life, man. I do. And not only that, like I think it would make a difference if he can build a team of guys like that. I think that their play style and their discipline can cover up a lot of deficiencies with not having like super talent. I think it can soften the blow of this actually being a rebuild. You know what I mean? If you can get enough of those guys together, you can cover up a lot of inadequacies, so to speak. So I hope he can acquire that many guys. I mean, he has our guys. He has hopefully some guys leaving Detroit. Hopefully, Muji has some guys leaving Denver. Like, those are three good squads to build one team out of.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that when you look at those comments, you look at who they're coming from, right? And they, coming, especially coming from Aaron Glenn, like, like the dude is a lunch pail hard worker. Like, I don't care if I'm not the most athletically gifted guy. I don't care if I'm not the tallest or the whatever. He's like, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna put that work in, and I'm gonna perform. And I'm hoping, since that's what he's looking at for our team, we get a team full of them guys that are just maybe not the most talented guys, but just like the hardest working. Like, they're always going to overperform, because they're just going to grind harder than you will. And if you look at Darren Muji, you know, they asked him, Eric Allen and the guys asked him, like, football side, like, what's your hobby? Like, do you have a hobby or whatever? Dude was stuck. Like, he's like I hang out with my family, and then there's football. That's it. Like, he's a football guy. He puts the work in, and his resume speaks for itself. All he did go
Yep.
up the ladder
Yep.
because he worked his ass off, and he loves the sport of football. So that's something that him and Aaron Glenn share. So I can see where that plan would work. I can see where they can find guys that are like-minded, hardworking guys that love football, that want to be there, not afraid to put their nose to the grindstone, that type of thing. Um, and even if you just think about it, like, look at the Broncos. Like, the last couple years, they performed better than anybody expected. Like, they were just kind of a gritty team, were they not? That is not the most talented roster. That is not one of the top 10 most talented rosters in the league. Probably not, maybe not even top 15.
Right.
But
Right.
they were just gritty. That defense was gritty. Like, they were hard working. So Darren Muji comes from there. So hopefully he brings that mentality with him. The Lions, Dan Campbell biting kneecaps. That's how gritty he is. And so Aaron Glenn is in that culture, and that fits him too. So hopefully these guys bring that with them. We get some grittiness in our team. We get some discipline in our team, and just like our guy Scott over there saying, well coached. I just hope that they're well coached.
Facts, man. Be smart and be physical. And bro, I don't know how much more I could ask for, because if if the bottom of our roster comes up, I think then finally the top of it will get to show what they're made of. Right now, or recently, I should say, it's been very hot cold as far as performance across our roster. And we're going to need a lot of cheap guys. We're going to need a lot of 2-3 million. We're going to have some $2-3 million starters on this team playing a lot of minutes. So you would think that these guys would be hungry and physical and laying their bodies out there. We're going to find out. And this is a lot like, in my eyes, it's a little bit like a dry run for 2026. Um, get the guys in free agency that you want to be here. Get them under 2-3 year deals. Everybody else get a 1 year deal and maybe just see how it goes. Because you're not going to be able to plug all these holes in one off season. So have flexibility. Maybe not too much though, because we saw what happened last year. We got 30 guys walking out the door. Um, but delicate balance. Just, dude, nail the pick number 7. That's the biggest thing of the whole off season. I feel like is nail that pick. It's got to be a guy that contributes in a big way. I feel like, and we'll get into all that. But
Yeah. Well, to me, obviously you want to nail all the picks, but I almost feel like it's even more important to nail second round on. You know, because that's what the good teams do. Like you see, like the Rams and stuff like that. They nail those third rounders, those fifth rounders and stuff. Starting left guard is a fifth round pick and stuff like that. And he's like, you know, maybe not the best in the league, but very solid. Like that's what we need to do. You know, in my opinion. And yeah, 7 I think is super important as well. But when you, Dane, I know you preach it all the time. You're like, guys, we got holes. We do have holes. So if we have holes, then we need to nail those picks. We need to nail second, third, fourth. We need to nail all those picks. At the very least, build some solid depth. You know.
Facts. Facts. And again, we'll have new coordinators too. That'll make a big difference. About time we got a new special teams coordinator. And maybe you don't make a lot to do about that, but what I like about changing from Boyer to Banjo is that he is not gonna be so stuck in what we've been doing. And to, don't just trot Xavier Gibson back out there for another season. Like, actually evaluate our roster and find the best return man. So we're gonna have new eyes on everything, new spins. So that's the exciting part for me, I guess, is just I want to see what changes, because I think that the changes will come, and I think that the bar isn't very high for whether or not the changes will be good or bad. Like, most of them are going to be good. It's just how good, how fast. So
Yeah,
no, no,
I think when you have this new regime in, everybody gets reevaluated, right? So like everybody from like the types that you and I want out the door, like the Michael Clemenses and the Xavier Gibsons, you know, they're getting reevaluated. They're not just like, oh, coach likes this guy, he's staying. No, it reevaluated on your performance. If you're not good enough, you're probably out the door. And then even guys that are like, you know, most likely not going to get rid of, like the Sauce and so on and so forth, they're getting evaluated. They're going to see what their strengths are. They're going to learn from where they had, you know, faults and weaknesses, and hopefully they're going to build the system to where and implement it to where these guys can perform even better, you know. So like it's just a lot to be excited about when you got a new regime in, because they can do all that, you know, if they do it right. Um,
facts. I don't know how plugged we both just finished our work week, but did you hear any news about old Matt Stafford this week, Daniel?
uh, so Raiders and him agreed to a contract, and now it's up to the Rams to decide whether they want to match it.
That was what I heard on Thursday night. And then this morning, it came out that the Rams are just going to give him a deal. He's going to stick around. He's going to apparently take less than the Raiders or the Giants were offering. He's going to take less to stay a Ram. So,
Can you blame
one of the. No, can't blame him. Not one bit.
No, I thought he was going to stay a Ram the whole time. I never thought for a chance that he was going. Like, what else were they going to do at QB?
Facts. The next thing I heard though, after he came off the board, so to speak, was that the Giants, who were flirting with Stafford, is going to segue to other veteran quarterback options, including Aaron Rodgers. So there's a chance that Aaron can stay in town, just not playing for the Jets. Real quick, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers possibly being interested or possibly playing for Big Blue?
Uh, if he wants to, great. If they want him, great. I mean, I don't know. He's not a Jet. I mean, technically he is a Jet right now, but he's not a Jet anymore. Like we all know he's going to be gone, you know. Um, I don't know if he can still win a Super Bowl. I don't know. So if
They're
they
pretty
want to
far
take
away.
for us, it was just turn the page. Like I understand like the new regime's outlook on it. They just wanted to turn the page, right, and just start over fresh. build it the way they want to, rather than trying to like rekindle what's already there. I get it. Um, I don't know. Who knows where Rogers is going to go? My bigger question is Devontae following him wherever he goes? Like,
Yeah.
are we keeping Devontae or not? Because that's kind of a big deal. Kind of need to know
And
that.
And if we're not, can we get something out of him? Because, if we don't, you're talking, if we cut him, it's 8.3 million dead money. Like, I, can you guys, like, can someone out there even pay most of that 8 dead? And then they don't have to outbid everyone for his services? Or, what can we do? Mooch, how creative you going to be here, man? You got Aaron under contract, you got Devontae under contract. I don't think you can trade both, but can you get a pick swap out of one of them? How badly do they want to be in the same place again? I don't know any of this, but if you got a pick swap out of Devontae, like say we gave 6 for a 5th, or something, maybe our 3rd rounder comes up one rung or so, anything, man. Then you're off and running, man. I like it.
So, well, then let me ask you, like for Devontae, if you do potentially have trade options, and let's say it is to the Giants and Aaron's there or whatever, um, are you more interested in them taking on more of the money, or are you more interested in getting that pick back? Because it's probably one or the other. Like, would you rather a better quality pick
Yeah,
and
good point. Good
take
question.
all that dead money and so on and so forth, or what?
I I guess the money I care the most about is 2026 money, and that's Aaron. And we're gonna get anything trading him. If it was an Aaron Rodgers trade, I would rather someone help with the money. If it's a Devonte Adams trade, I would rather get capital, if that makes sense, because you're only talking 8 million dead. With Rodgers, you're talking a little more than 8 million dead. So yeah, I would. We gave a third for Devonte, and we gave cash for Devonte, and he gave us 12 games. 12 games. What? 3 of them were wins. So like, can we get anything back for that besides a .25 batting average? In the win column. So capital. My answer is capital.
As I knew it would be. As I um Yeah, because you don't think that you're really going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. So it would make sense to just take the hit on the money right now, and then it's freed up next year anyway. Plus, you get that extra pick. You know, to me, that does make a lot of sense. Um, Devontae, I mean, he did play well, right? Like relatively, he played pretty well. Will he continue to play well? I don't know. What is he, 33? I mean,
Yeah, he's 32.
at some point he's probably going to drop off.
See, the key though too is if you were interested in trading him, most of his money is not guaranteed. So he would have to be willing to restructure with whoever's acquiring him, or willing to sign a new deal with them, which drastically limits who you can trade with. He's not gonna just go to Cleveland. So that already chips away most of the teams. But I do think that there are some teams out there that may not want to try to outbid everyone else for him. That might say, "Hey, I could talk Devontae into to signing here for a year or two. So here's a sixth." Or I don't think it's impossible if it happens. I just think that it would help my opinion of Muji's command of general managing if he was able to get something out of him.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I always love a GM that can squeeze the lemon for all it's worth when it comes to like draft picks and trades and things like that. Um, like even if you pay a little bit more, in your free agency, signings and things like that, that's okay. But like, if you can get them extra picks, man, that helps out so much. So if I want a GM that is strong in one or the other, I'm gonna say like trades and getting draft capital and hitting on the picks. That's my guy right there.
As much, dude, awesome, awesome convo already. We're talking all things Jets, guys. Keep your comments coming. I see them in the chat, and I have a few of them on standby for Dom. Speaking of Dom, got him in the green room now, folks. So I'm not going to keep you guys waiting any longer. Bringing him out, and I do have to refresh my browser. It is bugging on me, but let's bring him out, and then you'll see me disappear for a minute after I chat with him for a sec. So without further ado, we have the great Dom C.
What's up, Murph? What's up, Dano? How are you guys?
Dude, how you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Hey, listen, little before I get into it, Dano, your mic, I don't know what's going on, but I'm only hearing it on one side. Murph sounds fine. You don't. I don't know if it's you or me.
Good call. It's like one channel. It is a condenser mic. I got to refresh. Let me see what I can do.
I don't care. I can deal with it. I didn't know if it was quiet to the rest of the peeps. That's all.
I got you, man. I'll be back. Chat. Let me know if anybody else is having that problem. But you guys can chop it up, man. Hey, great seeing you, Dom. I'll be right back, brother.
All right, brother.
Yeah, Dane pulling his usual Houdini and leaving me with the kid here, babysitting. No, I'm just kidding, Dom. Hey, buddy, it's good to see you, man. So, are you excited, dude? It's combine. It's combine.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's an exciting time of the year. Unfortunately, for 14 straight years, we've lived for the off season. So, as Jets fans, but it's an exciting time of the year, Jets fan or not, this is, it's go time. You know what I mean? It's, things start to get hot and heavy. Obviously you see in the NFL and the atmosphere of the NFL, you see a lot of things happening. I mean, just today we saw, the Rams restructure or redo a deal with Stafford and signed Alaric Jackson. So they locked up their left tackle. You're starting to see guys get cut. You're starting to see moves. And then, it's right around the corner where free agency starts. And I think that is the underlying most important part of what happens with the draft, right? Because we could talk about prospects and fits and who's going to go where and what round till we're blue in the face right now. But shit's going to change. And I'm sorry, stuff's going to change in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Let loose.
Stuff's going to change in a couple of weeks when after free agency, because the guys that we might be all honing in on, might not be fits. Case in point, Murph, a couple years ago, I don't know if you remember, I think it was the Sauce draft, 22. Everyone was really high on a tight end prospect out of Colorado State, Trey McBride. Like he was the shit. He was the shit, and every single person wanted him.
Jets mock draft, dude, was McBride for sure.
Yeah, McBride in the second round. And then what happened? Free agency started, and we signed Uzoma and Conklin, and then the Trey McBride thing just fell off the roof. So we don't know what's going to happen right now. We'll see what happens come free agency, and but this is it's an exciting time, especially when guys like me who spend a lot. I start this. I start my real evals and film study in August. So now it's kind of like a culmination. I'm not I do truth be told, I still have a couple guys that I need to familiarize myself with their film and study a little bit, but it's few and far between. It's really just random linebackers and some other a couple other guys that I just don't have film on that I can't I can't get my hands on. So outside of that, it's it's go time. It's the culmination of all the work that the analysts and people who dive into this stuff do from July and August on is here, and it's done. Come April, I'm going to be a non-important factor in the world of Jets draft.
Hey, that's never the case, but that's what I was thinking a little bit ago. I said, like, Dom has been putting his nose to the grindstone all year, with
Yeah.
that film, studying the film, breaking it down, things like that. So like when you get to combine week, you start, throwing a little bit of stats into it, like, oh, okay, so like even though I thought this guy was maybe running a 4.5, based on the film I was watching, he's actually blowing a 4.37 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whatever
for
it may
sure.
be, you know what I mean? Being able to put some stats to it and mix it all together and kind of finalize your little rankings there and kind of get an
Yeah.
idea of really where you're sitting.
So and that's a good point too, because and listen, I'm not here to throw shade at anybody. Like I will never, if somebody, even if I don't agree with them, if somebody says they like this person better than this person, that's, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Like, I never understood why people fight and say, "Oh, you're wrong. You need to do this. You need," no. It's like people have their own set of eyes and they see things differently. And some people will, really trust what they watch, and some people will not, and they'll kind of move according to what consensus or what the masses say. So I've been doing this long enough, and not to say that I'm far from perfect, but the one thing that I've learned is that I will trust my eyes. Like, I'd rather be wrong with my take than be right with one of yours. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna come to my own assessment, and run with it. Now, the combine for me, and people are different. Like, the combine for me doesn't really change. Like, my guy, like, my rankings will probably stay the same in terms of tiers. You know what I mean? But if I got, I got a guy who just like really, really shits the bed, I might go back and watch and say, okay, well, I didn't see him that unathletic on film. Let me go back and see what I missed or something along those lines. And maybe maybe I might drop him a couple spots within the tier, but I'm not taking a guy that has a third round grade on me, and because he tests out of the roof, all of a sudden I'm giving him a first round grade. For me, it doesn't work like that. For others, it might, but that's just not how I roll.
Let me ask you something.
Go ahead, bro.
Rest in peace, Gunnar Helm. That's all I just want to put out there.
You talked about people getting mad at each other over their takes. So what you're telling me is that you would have no fear walking into a Starbucks in Indianapolis.
Yeah, those guys are nuts, man. I guess
They are. Hey, let me ask you though. This is year round for you, and I know that.
Yeah.
Are you already looking at next, like Drew Aller? I'm sure you already did, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, when do you really start? Like, when do you turn your calendar?
So, I mean, realistically, I mean, I already have a database of guys that I have a lot of hours of film involved in. Drew Aller, you mentioned, the guys that you're not sure if they're coming out. Drew Aller's for one. I'm thinking off the top of my head. Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback from LSU, is another one. Guys that could have been in this class. Carson Beck. I mean, I have I think 12 games and a full scouting report write up already on him. So I'm a little bit of a head start on that. I'll really start gathering information and starting to watch some of last year's film, the 24 games, in that lull that we have in the summer. Now, I don't get, there's guys and there's guys that really, 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 the Connor Rogers and the Trevor Sickmas of the world where, they'll get full scouting reports through the summer on these guys and do true summer scouting. I don't necessarily do that. I might get a couple games in, to get a head start kind of building a kind of building my own board for the positional groups, and then really start pushing forward in August. That's when it starts, and then from August to December, I try to make sure, I get at least, at least the top 100 guys. I try to get at least 3 to 4 games in.
Well, speaking of big board, Dom, I did have another question before we start diving into these prospects and stuff like that about your process. When it comes to Dom's big board, right?
Yeah.
As things unfold throughout the year, like things happen every day. Breaking news: this dude ran over this other dude's pet dog, and so on and so forth. And this dude was smoking meth on I-95 and whatever. Do outside of football things influence the Dom C big board, or is it just an asterisk douchebag?
No, so that's actually a really good question, and one of the things that I learned through growing through scout school is that the NFL, the way I might look and break down a prospect as an analyst, if you want to call it that, as a fan with access to collegiate all 22 in a nutshell. Is a whole lot different than what an NFL team does, in the sense of not necessarily the film, but all those other factors that come into play. Because again, I'm assessing a guy on what he does in between, the in between the white lines, right? An NFL team really takes this stuff and does the background checks are just as important as the stuff that they put on the field for a lot of teams, sometimes even more. So I will definitely, in my process, I have, as I'm going through my scouting reports and in my spreadsheets, I have a whole column for, for red flags, and red flags could be anything from, getting in trouble with the law, can be from, getting kicked out of school for grades, getting, for instance, like Mike Green. You guys know Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall.
Yeah.
Whether or not, he talked a lot about on the podium here down in Mobile. Not in Mobile, I'm sorry, in Indianapolis. But he started his collegiate career in Virginia, and real hush hush, he left Virginia and went to transfer to Marshall. So there was a lot that came about, and people had dug, and he had some, I think it was quelled. He kind of came out and said that it was a whole bunch of nothing burger, but it had to do with some some off the field issues, like with a female, this, that, and the other thing. So I don't necessarily, it won't affect their grade on what I'm grading them out as, but could it affect could it affect the Jets' grade on him? Could it affect his mark on the big board? Yeah, it absolutely would. Injuries are different stories. Injuries, I think, can play into somebody's actual prospectus or their their report, because that's tangible. That's going to affect how they're going to play on the field. Somebody's off the field issues, not necessarily. Again, but I'm not drafting these guys.
Let me ask, pertaining to like the switching schools and stuff. Back in the day, and yes, getting close to 40, man. So don't give me too much hard time. But it used to be a time when like a guy switched schools in the middle of his collegiate career, it would be a big red flag. It's like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Now it's like everybody does.
The world of NIL, man, made collegiate football a whole different story, and the rules changed. Like, it wasn't too long ago, less than 10 years ago, where if you transferred schools, you had to sit out a year. You had to sit out a full year. If you went to, unless you went from Division I down to like 1AA or Division II or something, then you could play the next year. But if you transferred from school 1 to 1, you had to sit out a year. And then they kind of honed it in and said if you transferred to a school within the conference, like if you went from Florida to Alabama, you had to sit out a year. But if you went to from Florida to Michigan, you were okay. And now they've abolished that, and the transfer portal is a big recruiting tool, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The transfer portal, guys enter the transfer portal all the time, and now with the NIL money, you're gonna see this. We've seen it over the past 2 years. Guys go to 3 schools. Demetrius Knight, linebacker for South Carolina. He played at 3 different colleges.
Yeah. Yeah, that's getting way more common, man. And you're seeing like some of these like newly hired coaches, because normally back in the day it was like you got to give them like a 6-year contract, let them recruit their guys in, and eventually build up to what they're trying to do. Yeah. Now it's like you get a new coach, and if he hits the transfer portal right, I mean, he could be successful that next year, man. Mm-hmm. And it's the college football landscape has definitely changed a lot, man.
Yeah, and the college coaches will tell you that, and it's evident because you see all these college coaches leaving the college game and now taking lesser jobs in the NFL, right? Hatley, who was the head coach at BC, left to become the defense coordinator for the Packers. Just today, the head coach for Bowling Green left that job to take the quarterbacks coach in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? So it happens more often now than ever because they know that the college game's not for, it's not for the faint of heart these days. You can't keep these kids in school. You can't keep them in your school.
Facts.
Yeah.
Well, Dane, do you want to start them off on some prospect talk?
Yeah, let's get a little more jet centric with it, and I don't want to spend all our time because like I feel spoiled to have you on, Dom, and I appreciate you hopping on with us, man, for real. But like the more like the further away from all 22 that some of us get, the more tunnel vision we get to the first round. But with that said, before we do get a little, into the second, third, fourth round, what do you think is the best case scenario for the Jets at 7, and then maybe what do you think the worst case scenario would be?
Best case scenario. I mean, listen, are we talking unrealistic? Are we talking like like an Abdul Carter falls to 7? I guess that would be best but unrealistic.
Yeah, I'd say realistic.
Man, again, without having free agency completed, it's really hard to say. For me, I think for the Jets, I think there's a couple. There's a lot of different ways they can go. If I had to guess, I think if I think Tyler Warren is, there's definitely interest. There's definitely mutual interest. I think that's where you match position of need and talent, albeit it's a position that's not, deemed priority. I think he's, if he's on the board, he's in the discussion. Whether, and I'll hold my opinions aside. I think Mason Graham is a guy would be best case scenario. I mean, he's a talented kid. I just question the fit next to Quentin Williams. Again, that's just me and my assessment. Other people who, are a lot more tuned in and paid a lot of money to do this stuff think differently, and that's fine. So I think if you have those two guys on the board, one, it's a discussion. And then I'm going to even throw in, and I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, whether it's you guys or whether it's in the, in the chat. But I think if Shedeur Sanders is on the board, I think he's going to clearly be in consideration, just because of the lack of future that we have in the quarterback room. You talk about talent. I don't think that this quarterback class per se, I'm not going to say it's bad, but I don't know if there's that true franchise guy in here. However, if you get a guy that could come in and be a good system fit and really be part of that culture changing, that leadership. And I think that's the part of Shedeur Sanders' game outside of the field that goes unnoticed, is that, he's really, really revered and respected by his peers on the field. I know he comes across to some very cocky, and I don't think so at all. I think he's confident. I think there's a big difference between cocksureness and confidence. And he's confident. However, there is the baggage of Dion that comes along with all that stuff. I think that my opinion, and my opinion only, I think Shedeur Sanders gets a bad rap. And people take all that secondary and tertiary nonsense and throw it into him and say, he's not going to be the guy when they're not looking at really what he does on the field, not only with the ball in his hand as at playing quarterback, but as a leader and really the moxie that he plays with.
Yeah, he said today too, he said, if you draft me, if you want to change your culture.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, it's just funny because I heard today somebody was talking about a video apparently had circulated at some point of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I guess they're buddies, from what I'm hearing. I guess they were working out, throwing together, and Cam Ward was kind of busting his balls, right? And he was saying, "Oh, he's like completion percentage king." He's like, "If there was an award for completion percentage, you get it, buddy," and this and that, and he got under Shadur's skin, and Shadur, you could see it in his face. He was like getting annoyed, and he's like, "Man, I didn't have a run game, and this and that," and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I guess you're hanging out with buddies. You're a little more loose on the lip
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But I don't know. True leader never blames others, in my opinion. A true leader is like, you know what? He's like, I just tried to do what I could with my system and what they asked out of me, and I don't know. Just a little nugget that I said because I'd heard a lot about Shadur's leadership, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound as much of a leader as I thought, but.
Yeah, I think we can, we can dissect it. You can dissect it however, like you're gonna interpret however you see. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head, Murph, when you said like there's difference between your messing around shooting the shit with your boys, and then when you're like on the field. I think the leadership can really shine on the field, and what happens, like I said, when you're talking, messing around, talking junk with your kids, with your boys, could be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Listen, I in honesty, in full transparency, I don't think he reaches us at 7 anyway. Wholeheartedly, I don't. I think both quarterbacks are going to be off the board before we even have a shot. I know. I shouldn't say that. I have pretty good knowledge that the Jets aren't going to be able to trade up for 1. Mainly that's because Tennessee has made it known that they don't want to trade back past number 4. So they clearly have a tier of 4 guys. They'll be happy with any of those. So they don't want to move down past 4. So I think unless we're trading up to 4 and then somehow trading up to 7, we just don't have the juice or the capital to do that.
And Dom, real quick, while we put the QB debate to bed, if you did have Shador land in your lap, would it at all affect what you do in the 2026 draft? Like, would it stop you from getting a Aller later?
It's a good question. I think if you take a quarterback, the simple answer is no. There should never be a pick that affects what you do the next year. If that's the guy and you hone in on him and that's the decision that you make, then that's the guy. We saw it even though they changed regimes. You saw it happen with the Arizona Cardinals a few years ago. They drafted Josh Rosen with the 10th pick overall one year, and the next year they drafted Kyler Murray first overall. Again, maybe a little bit different because the regimes changed, the coaches changed, the front office changed. But it makes it a little bit tougher. I'm sure it's a tougher decision to make. For me, I don't think it would come into play. I think that your guys are your guys, and if you think that the next guy, you have a shot at somebody else who you think can really change your franchise or be that long-term piece, you go get him no matter who's on who's on your board.
Absolutely. So he asked you about best case scenario at 7, right? For me personally, best scenario at 7, if we're sticking and picking, I mean, I would love a trade back, but if we're sticking and picking, probably for me, it's Tet McMillan. I'm a fan of Tet, but we're not going to ask you about wide receiver on round 1. I actually wanted to play out a different scenario. What if the Jets go Mason Graham, Tyler Warren, maybe one of these edges? I mean, there's quite a few edges in the first round. You never know, man. You can never have enough edges. So then we're going down to 42, and I'm looking at maybe a wideout at 42. So I'm gonna rattle off like 8 names here. We're getting rid of Travis Hunter. We're getting rid of Tet McMillan because those to me are just locks first round.
Yeah.
And I know there's never any such thing as a lock, but if there is, those 2 are probably locks first round. I'm gonna rattle off 8 names real quick. Just give me like an idea of like, okay, no chance in hell those guys even make it to 42. I like these fits. These are my guys. Hell no.
Okay.
Way too early. Whatever you want to say about any of those guys, okay?
Let's
and you
shoot.
don't have to hit every single one, whatever whatever your
No,
point is.
listen. I
But-
got 41 grades on wide receivers so far. So
Nice.
anybody you shoot off, I'm
I
sure I'm
think
gonna be
8
able to
is
answer.
within your range. All right. I'm gonna rattle them off. Okay, Luther Burden, Missouri; Emeka Ebuka, Ohio State; Matthew Golden, Texas; Trey Harris, Ole Miss; Jaden Higgins, Iowa State; Isaiah Bond, Texas; Jack Beck, TCU; and Tez Johnson in Oregon.
Okay.
Any of them make it to 42? Do you like any of them? Are they going to be a good fit? What do you think?
I'll go just in the order that you said. I don't think Ibuka is even in the discussion at 42. I don't think he makes it there. I think he's a first rounder. He's actually he's a guy. I have him very closely graded to Tet McMillan. I believe Tet is my 10th player overall, and Emeka Ibuka is my 16th. So again, they're not just because I have them ranked that way. That doesn't mean where I think they're going to go. But I think Emeka Ibuka is probably the single best route runner in this class. I love the fact that he's been the alpha dog on the Ohio State team. I mean, listen, that when he was there with Marvin Harrison Jr. and JSN, he was even there with Garrett, but JSN and Marvin Harrison Jr. Both gave Emeka Ibuka flowers and said, if he didn't have that injury in 2023, he probably was the best wide receiver on that team. And that's Marvin Harrison-led team. And we know how good Marvin Harrison was, but everyone will say it. So I happen to like Ibuka a lot. I don't think he's going to be there. Same can go for Matthew Golden. He's probably a guy that's climbing up from the end of the college football season till now, has probably made the most strides. He's just really all around really good. I think he'll measure out probably about 6'1", probably about 200 pounds. Roundabout around there. Gives you a lot. He's quick. He's got really good hands. But he's also a good boundary guy. He's a good possessor. He catches the ball. Very good route runner in his own right. But I think his ability to really play three positions and have the physical aspects that can withstand the NFL game, I think is going to make him a hot commodity. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the second wide receiver off the board. Then you get into Luther Burden. Okay, so I have Luther Burden's my third wide receiver. I think he's, you can comp him to Garrett Wilson light, like the dollar store version of Garrett Wilson. He's a little bit smaller than Garrett in height, but he's a little bit stockier. But that short area quickness, those in and outs of his cuts. Some people think that he's going to be slot specific at the next level. I think he can probably play the Z, that flanker that Garrett does. And kind of move him around a little bit, but what he can do with the ball in his hands is really good. Like, he's a slot fade merchant, man. He'll beat guys, he'll beat slot cornerbacks, up the boundary left and right. So that's probably he's probably not going to reach 42 as well, because you got to remember, I don't think these guys all might go in the first round. They all might not, but then you get to the top of the second round, you have. Barring what happens in from 1 to 10 in round 1, you then have Tennessee, you have New England, you have the Giants, you have Carolina, who pick not Carolina. There's one other team there. I'm thinking, I can't remember. There's like 3 or 4 teams that pick ahead of Cleveland, that pick ahead of us in the second round, that are also in need of wide receivers. So you not only have to have these guys get past the first round, but you have to also get them past the top of the second round, and that's where it's getting tough. But so I'm gonna assume, based on your list, Murph, that those 3 guys are not in the equation. Okay, so reel off some of the other names. We're taking those 3 right off the clip. You said I know you said Isaiah Bond was one of them, right? Isaiah Bond, and listen, he's going to there's rumors that he might break the record. He might break Xavier Worthy's record in the 40 tomorrow. Like, he's a go guy. he is not my favorite receiver at all in the class. I have him ranked 15th in the class. Just very inconsistent. Fast as a whip, don't get me wrong. But really outside of that speed, doesn't really bring anything. He's not gonna, the athletic testing he'll be fine at, but the measurables are gonna come in short. Small catch radius. I question if he's gonna be able to get off of he's not physical enough. I don't know if he's gonna be able to get off press coverage. To me, he's not a second round player. So I'm going to knock him off the board also right there. Probably the same with Tez Johnson. I know Tez Johnson is a real fan favorite. But man, that guy's 156 pounds. He is in the one percentile. You remember Tank Dell a couple years ago, and Tank Dell came out and he blew up the Senior Bowl and he blew up the Combine and ended up going in the third round, like way higher than anyone ever thought he would, because he was just that good, the way he can separate and that speed and that quickness in and out of his breaks, so on and so forth. Well, that's Tez Johnson, absolutely. But it's Tez Johnson is 16 pounds lighter than what Tank Dell was. And, you see what happens in the physical game. I mean, injuries are going to happen, but Tank Dell's now dealt with two major injuries, back to back. So that body type is just not long for the NFL. So I'm going to rule him out completely at pick 42. So that's 5 guys. We're down to 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said Jaden Higgins, you said Jack Besh, and who else?
Trey Harris.
Trey Harris. Okay. So I think all 3 of those guys are in play for the Jets at 42, especially if they don't, if they bypass wide receiver at 1. And it's funny, this class, there's still some names after that could be, intriguing. But the wide receiver class, it's not very top heavy. Then you get, a good bunch that are going to go, late round 1 to probably early round 3. And then after that, it kind of really thins out a lot. So if the Jets are going to target a wide receiver, if I was making the decision, this is exactly where I'd be looking at him, that second and third round, because I think that's where you want to match up their value with the need on the team. And obviously the Jets have a need on the team. And the value, like I said, from anywhere from that 35 range to probably about 90 is where the true value of this wide receiver class is going to go. So Trey Harris is I have them ranked as you stated them. I have them ranked Higgins, Harris, Besh. However, schematically for what the Jets want to do, it'd be hard for me. I'd be happy with any of them. If I'm being honest. They're all 3 different receivers, right? Jaden Higgins is your prototypical X build. He's your prototype. He's your big body. He's your boundary guy. He's going to be about 6'4". He's going to be about 210 pounds, long arms, big hands, big catch radius. There were some questions on how he was going. He's not the bullet that Isaiah Bond, or doesn't have the short area quickness of Tez Johnson. But for a big guy, he can move, right? There's some questions on if he would be able to separate and how much that long speed he's going to have. And it's funny, at Iowa State, they had 2 good receivers there. They had him and they had Jalen Knoll. And Knoll was that kind of like that short slot, kind of short area guy. And Higgins worked the middle of the field, and they used him to out rebound guys on the 50-50 ball, so on and so forth. So, I like that fit for the Jets, because we don't really have, especially since I think it's safe to assume Alan Lazard's probably not long for the roster. There's not much size. And again, without free agency, we don't know what's going to happen, but there's not much size in the wide receiver room right now, right? You got Garrett, who's, barely 6 feet tall. You have Xavier Gibson, who's not, he's part of the depth, but, what is he going to offer you outside the slot? And then you have the unknown of Malachi Corley, but when he sees the field, he's probably going to be more slot dominant. So a guy like Jaden Higgins, a guy like Trey Harris, they really fit schematically what you want to do. in terms of different prototype and different play style. I think Trey Harris is a phenomenal player. I really do. That guy just he's probably got the best hands in all of college football, and at least in this draft class, I'd say that. He's definitely not the shiftiest. You know what I mean? Let's see. Who can I give a good comp to? This is going to sound bad because of the way his career ended, but think early career Kenny Golladay. That's the kind of movement that Trey Harris is. Think Mike Pittman. That's the kind of guy I think Trey Harris can be. A good possession type boundary receiver. Won't blow by you, but anything you throw at him, he's going to catch. Good route runner, real physical guy. Jaden Higgins is the same thing. I think Jaden Higgins actually is a little bit more shifty than Trey Harris. He might not have the long speed, but he's definitely a little bit more shifty. And then Jack Besh. Jack Besh is unique, man. So set aside all the personal stuff, and you guys probably heard, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, but his brother was tragically lost his life in the New Orleans the New Orleans massacre down there on New Year's Eve. His brother was a great receiver himself, smaller school, Princeton kid. So that happened on New Year's Eve, and Jack Besh came into the Senior Bowl. No one thought he was going to come, but he came and he showed the fuck up. And he's a converted tight end. He was at LSU, recruited as a tight end. They moved him to a receiver, and he was the best receiver as a freshman on the LSU team. On the LSU team with Malik Neighbors. On the LSU, with all these studs that LSU puts out, he was the best receiver there. He ended up transferring, and I don't, for the life of me, I don't remember the reasoning why. But he made the move full time from tight end to receiver, and man, you talk about 50-50 balls. That guy's like a 70-30. That guy literally catches everything. He plays different, right? He's definitely not going to be the fastest guy on the field. The testing stuff ain't going to be for him. Like that's the kind of guy that is going to be like your team captain type, like that's going to lay it all on the line, that's going to play hurt, that's going to lead not only by his words but by his example on the field. Gives it his all every time. Again, being a former tight end, he's a great blocker, and he just knows how to get open. Again, he's up there with Emeka Egbuka in terms of his route running nuance. He can run everything. He's just not he's just going to be a little bit more of a limited athlete, especially at 23, going to be 24 years old. Big body. I think he can play all over the place, although his home really is going to be in the slot. He doesn't have, that doesn't mean he's going to have to be 80-90% of the time in the slot, but I think that's where he'll do the most damage because he's a little bit, he's bigger and he's stronger than nickel cornerbacks. And he's, the release package leaves a little be desired. So against good NFL press man coverage, he might struggle to get off the line on the outside. So in the slot, you can kind of move him around and kind of force his, help him force and create his separations.
Sticking with wide receiver, before we segue, I want to talk a little safety and a little linebacker. If you have a little bit longer for us, Dom.
I got plenty of time, brother. Okay,
thank you. I wanted to ask how unrealistic I'm being, because I was split between Graham, Tet, and Warren. Mm-hmm. And ever since, dude, I've been excited for a month to see Tet actually run tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now I don't get to, and I'm kind of knocking him down a peg. I'm kind of pissed off at him. Am I being an idiot at doing that? Like, talk to me.
No. So listen, as a fan, I think you can be disappointed. In this year more so than any other year, it seems like these guys are they're all bowing out of certain things. You looked at the first round of D tackles and D ends that did the drills. They had a group of 40. Only 18 of them ran the 40-yard. You know what I mean? Only 26 of them did the other testing. So there's a lot to it. Listen, here's the truth about Tet McMillan. He's not going to help his draft stock much by running. That's long speed. That stuff. That's not his. He's not gonna run fast. And people are gonna see a 40-yard dash. And the only thing he could do is hurt his stock. So professionally, I understand it for sure, because if he goes and he does the other things, if he runs the gauntlet and catches, runs routes when the quarterbacks are throwing and stuff like that, I think you can kind of feel a little bit better at it. If he chooses not to do anything, that's a different story. But listen, him not running or him not testing in the athletic stuff, it's just more so because I think that the only thing he could do is hurt his draft stock. He's not going to improve it much, because
sense.
he's not going to come out and he's not going to run a blazing time in the 40.
Yeah.
In reality, he's probably a 4.5, a high 4.5, 4.6 guy.
Okay.
He's a long strider. He's smooth, but he can jump out of the roof. He's got great hands. I think he's a real weapon with the. I think he's a real weapon with the ball in his hand, like with the yards after the catch stuff, which I think goes very underrated, or not talked about enough for a guy, for him. I think he's, like I said, at 6'5", with an 80-inch wingspan, like that's unicorn status for a wide receiver. So you question. There's definitely going to be some questions on how he's going to handle press coverage as well.
Yeah.
The release package isn't great. But listen, they said the same thing. A lot of the same things that were said about. It's always about the big receivers, right? They said the same things about Drake London. Drake London went in the top 10.
Right.
They said the same things about Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman he went in the early second round. He maybe wasn't as talented as Ted McMillan, and I think those guys have carved out pretty useful, good NFL careers. I'll say this about Ted McMillan. Like I said, I like him, and if the Jets took him at 7, I wouldn't be upset in the least. I don't know if I'm ready to label him like the next can't miss wide receiver 1. You know what I mean? Could he get there? Could he develop? Absolutely. He's a young kid, 22 years old. Probably still has a lot of room to grow as a player, and maybe even in his body. Like, he needs to get a little bit bigger. 6'5.5", he's going to weigh in probably about 210 pounds. So he's lean. So maybe he just hasn't come into his body altogether.
Yeah. And so the thing about like Tet and just any like big, tall, lanky receiver that's good at going up and just high pointing the ball and stuff like that, I don't put the 40 into much. There's not much behind it, because their game is not based on speed.
Yeah.
If they have it, great, that's fine or whatever. But those are the type of guys that are open when they're not open. So I don't put too much into the 40. And I do notice that guys nowadays, it seems like more and more people are opting out of workouts at the combine as the years are going on.
Yep.
It seems to be a trend, and I understand it, because you see guys every year during drills, whether it's the 40 gets it a good bit. Sometimes it's just during the gauntlets and stuff like that. Guys will blow an ACL or pull a hammy or whatever, and they don't want that, man.
Yeah.
That can hurt draft stock.
Oh, absolutely.
Low time might not, but a blown hammy or a torn ACL definitely can. So
For sure.
that's, I don't know. That's the way the NFL is trending. But I was looking at some of I haven't had a chance to watch the combine at all, hardly, because I just working and stuff like that. But I was just going through, looking at all the scores so far, just as of like a few hours ago, and I just kind of typed down a few names, or like I got like 4 names here, people that were seemed kind of stood out as far as combine numbers are. And take that for what it is. You want to maybe just go over these 4 players? Are they are they just guys that are just athletes, or are they actual football players? So that's why we have you here, because I don't know the film as well as you do. That's for sure.
Do the numbers match the film is very key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the standouts so far in the combine that I noticed. The big name so far, and he's just been flying up boards, it seems like, Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
And then to Nick. I'm gonna butcher the name.
Emanwari.
Yes, Nick Emanwari. He's crushing it, man.
Yeah.
Darian Porter, cornerback. He's testing pretty well so far, and then Max Harrison, another cornerback, that's testing pretty well so far.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll give you thoughts on all of them. So Shamar Stewart is there's probably an avenue that he's a top 10 player taken in this draft class. Okay. So a little background on Shamar Stewart. He played the season at 290 pounds. 290 pounds, 6'6", and you watch him on film and he moved just different. Like I said, he moved like he was 190 pounds, let alone 290 pounds. Okay, came into the Senior Bowl where he had a dominant week there as well at about 279 pounds, and then just for the combine, he was down to 265. So there's definitely some method to that madness. All right. Now, and Texas A&M kind of played him their ends. They have two ends that are going to be taken in the top 50 picks easy, and Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton, and they use their ends a little bit different. Right now, we think of defensive ends, and what do you want to see? You want to see the big sack numbers and the big plays and the disruption. Well, Shamar Stewart gave you all that except the sack numbers, right? So that's the big thing with the people either love Shamar Stewart or they hate Shamar Stewart.
He got like three and a half, right?
There's four and a half sacks throughout his whole college career, but he was a little bit misaligned. He played he played a lot of 4-eye, which is, kind of shading inside the, almost head up to the tackle, not necessarily like a 3-tech inside the tackle like Quentin Williams does, but one spot over. So on the outside shade of the offense tackle. So it's kind of like a hybrid spot, like a defensive end / defensive tackle role that they had him running and that they had him playing. And, their ends were used to contain. They didn't want their ends to go, sure, at third and long, you want to pin your ears back and get to the quarterback, so on and so forth. But, I mean, both Scorton and Shamar Stewart were used more so as run defense, contain, play, they had real gap consciousness or gap responsibility. So tons and tons of pressure, just didn't get home. Very reminiscent to a Carl Lawson. Right. That was the big knock on Carl Lawson, was that, he pressured the quarterback a ton, but he could never really seal the deal. So the Shamar
JFM is what that sounded like to me.
Yeah. So exactly. JFM, very, very similar. Now you put an athlete like Shamar Stewart in a scheme that the Jets ran last year, and you put him out in wide 9 and let him pin his ears back and get at the quarterback, I think you're going to see those sack numbers go. So I think it was a little bit of misutilization of his skill set at Texas A&M. I think it had a lot to do with the scheme that he was doing. But when you talk about a guy that big who plays with heavy hands, he plays violent. He's got a really good pass rush repertoire. He plays in balance. Those are the makings of really, really good football players, really good defensive ends. So I can't wait to see him in a scheme that really utilizes his skill set to the extent that he's capable of. Now a pick like Shamar Stewart's a little bit of a projection, like I said, because although the tape is good, it's not top 10 in the draft what you expect defensive end good. So you're assuming that you're going to be able to get him to that point. But yeah, I could see Shamar Stewart landing with a team like the Saints at 9, or I could see him in the discussion for Carolina at 8. I could see him in the discussion for the Saints at 9, Miami at 12. I mean, I think these are all teams that Shamar Stewart would really fit. It wouldn't surprise me if he went to the Jets at 7, I would get it. I would understand, because, they're banking that, that skill set is going to be able to, be turned into something that's really special. Kind of like when the Jacksonville Jaguars took Trayvon, what's his face? Walker. Trayvon Walker, one overall, right? It's very similar to Shamar Stewart in the sense that there was no production in Trayvon Walker's game. The pick there was based on projection, not what he did or not what he could do, but where he's going to be 3 years from now.
Lump of clay, you know. The lump of clay. Scott in the chat wanted to ask about a guy I feel like could be very similar to that. Thoughts on James Pierce Jr.?
Yeah, I love the player. He's my number 8 player on my board overall. Again, for the Jets and how I assume, because it's just assumption right now, how I assume the defensive scheme is going to be. I think you're going to see a lot more. You know, if Wilkes plays his style of defense, and you know, maybe it's a blend of what he wants to do with what a lot of the principles that AG is going to, you know, want to bring in. You're going to have a lot of man coverage across the back. They, you know, both of those guys have a tendency. I mean, Aaron Glenn played 82% man coverage last year, which is like by far the most in the league. Steve Wilkes' defense did a lot of the same thing, although he's been very much more adaptable. He didn't run he ran a ton of man coverage when he was the defensive coordinator and then interim head coach at Carolina. Did a little bit less of it in San Francisco. But you know, I could expect a lot of you can expect a lot of odd fronts. You know, like a lot of 3-4 base. And that's where a guy like James Pierce can come in because he's that outside linebacker. You know, think back to, again, not comping him to the player, but think of the position that Lawrence Taylor played. You know, you think of the position that TJ Watt plays, you know, where they're on 2 feet, they're on the outside, they're getting at the pass rusher, but, you know, also has some drop zone and some flat coverage responsibility, and he's athletic enough to do that. You know, but the athleticism, the level that he can get at the passer is just in this class. You know, him and Mike Green are at a crazy tier above everyone else, and that even includes Abdul Carter. You know, James Pierce led the nation in pass rush win rate over the past 2 years, and this year I think it was like let me see what the number is exactly. So he had a 21.8 pass rush win rate, 32% in true pass sets, and that means that there's no play action, there's none of that. It's just a true drop back pass, and he got the quarterback 32% of the time.
That's
he's
crazy.
He's a demon. He's just the speed kills. You know, I would love to see him. I would love to see him play with a little bit more bend. He does tend to play a little bit high at times, but you know, you can't teach that kind of speed, and you can't teach that kind of recovery. You know, even if he's beat on the first move, you know, he gets caught on the outside from a tackle. He's agile. He's got those short twitchy muscles where he can just stop and plant on a dime and counter and come inside. Uses his hands really good. So James Pierce is a guy I think that's gonna. I absolutely love him, and I would love him in the fit on the Jets, in that 3-4 kind of outside linebacker role.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so we got a Ducks guy over here, and
yes, sir.
I wore this because of you. We got a WVU guy right here.
All right.
And there's a lot of Ducks in the draft, man. I was looking through names earlier. I'm like, damn, there's another Duck. There's another. I didn't even know this guy. There's a lot of that. No, I guess there was a reason why they were first in the nation for the majority of the year. Well
coached too.
Well, let's slow down Ohio State, so it'll be the brakes off them. But so I was just wondering, is there any of Dom's guys that are, you know, from Oregon, or is there any WVU guys that are even worth drafting? Because there's not a lot, really.
Yeah, well, both. I mean, I'll talk about one of each. You know, I mean, listen, I've been shy. You guys, you know, maybe you follow me on socials or whatnot, but I've been singing the praises of Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson for a long time now. I think he's a I yeah, and not to mention again, I wasn't home, so I didn't watch any of it today, but catching up on the the sites and the Twitter, trying to update all my numbers and all this. Yeah, like I know he ran really fast. I think he ran in the low 4.6s, which is for this tight end class was really slow overall. But I think he was number one in there. But man, at 6'5", 250 pounds, a guy that I think is a really, really underrated blocker. He might not move and displace defensive tackles like some other guys in this class will like Warren or Jackson Hollis from Georgia Tech. Some of the bigger true inline guys, but man, he does a good job as a blocker. He understands leverage. He understands how to use his body. He understands how to make lanes, even if he's not moving, displacing guys off of there. But super long arms, really good hands, a true red zone threat. Like I said, tested out athletically, like phenomenal today. Again, a guy that, even though he wasn't the focal point of that Oregon offense, was one of the reasons that they were as high powered as they were, because he affects the game in both sides of it. He affects the game, as a run blocker, and he can help you in the pass game. Like I said, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever, and I mean this wholeheartedly. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever if down the road he's a consistent 8 to 10 touchdown guy. I don't know if he'll ever be 100 catches and for 1,800 yards like Brock Bowers, but he's going to be a red zone guy. He's going to be a touchdown guy. I liken him a lot to TJ Hawkinson, who came out of Iowa a few years ago, probably 6th, 7th year in the league now. That type of effect on the game, I think that he could have. So Terrence Ferguson's, even though he's not my highest rated Duck, he's probably my favorite one. He's one of my guys. And the West Virginia, man, I just absolutely love Wyatt Milam. I think Wyatt Milam is a lunch pail guy. I think he's going to come into this league and he's going to, get a starting job, whether it's right away as a plug and play guy or, whether he earns it in year 2 or 3, but he's going to be a 10-year plus starter, just as solid as they come. Not flashy, not super athletic, but just like all around strong. I think he's definitely going to move to the inside. I don't think he's going to play tackle, even though he was a left tackle that let up 1 sack and I think 2,300 snaps at West Virginia. I think the arm length and the movement skills are probably going to force him inside, and I think he's going to be a dominant guard. Like, I love his power profile. I love his anchor and his ability to re-anchor. After he gets beaten, just fire those hips and get them back under him and just settle down and keep defenders off there. The guy is strong as an ox. He's a guy that I've circled on my board as a guy that I know whether or not he's a Jet or not. I don't know if I'd spend a 1st or 2nd round pick just based on where we pick on him. But man, if he's there in the 3rd, like sign me up,
Dude.
Because you're gonna have a starter.
Dude, and that's why, oh my God, so many of these guys in between like 20 and 100 are just gems. I just wish we would slide at the top, man. I know it's difficult, but even if it's like 7 to 9 or 7 to 10, like New Orleans, Chicago, just give us one more pick in the 90s. I think it would go a long way.
Yeah, well, that's the soft spot of this draft class, right? And it's funny because we've talked about it. A lot of people have talked about it, and I know I mentioned it numerous times. It's just not a top-heavy class. There's position groups that are super deep, as good as they come. The tight end group, the running backs, the defensive line. It's as good as it's been in 10 years. But overall, there's just not a lot of top-end talent. And it won't surprise me if you find out, come May after the draft, that there was teams that only had maybe a half dozen, maybe 8 first-round grades, and then they have everyone from pick 10 to like pick 50 kind of in that same tier. So you could see some guys get plucked in the mid to late 1st round that, all of us, as we're doing our mock drafts and prognostication, never really talked about. Murph brought one up before in Maxwell Harrison.
Somebody say my name.
Oh, I did, and well, you missed my diatribe on Wyatt Milam, but you can listen back to it, brother.
Hey, yeah, go back. Yeah, I'll listen back. Trust me, I
Yeah.
will.
No, I was just saying how they're like after probably not being a very top heavy draft, anywhere from pick 10 to pick 50, teams are going to be taking their guys no matter, because they might have them all in the same tier, or in the same two tiers. So you talk about a guy like Maxwell Harrison, smaller guy, only maybe about 170, 175 pounds, sub 6 foot, shorter arms at 31 and a half. So you don't know if he's going to be able to stick outside. He might have to play nickel corner. But I mean, the guy, you saw what he did today, 4.28, I think he ran, which is ridiculous. And then you tie that in with the ball skills and the play style that he put on film. And he played the season with, half the season, at least, with a bad shoulder. So, you getting him healthy back. It won't surprise me where, he's not in my top 50. And I don't think he's been talked about much. His ceiling has been talked about in the mid-second round. It wouldn't surprise me if, a team that likes him and needs a nickel corner that much that they go and pluck him in the 20s. You know what I mean? That's what this kind of draft class is going to be. There's going to be teams are going to go get their guys because there's so few true first round grades in this class.
Yeah, and what you were mentioning, like when you're looking at a nickel corner too, you want them to be fast, but I think you really want them to be quick, right? Like you want them to be able to stop and start on a dime, because that when you're working in the slot, you got two-way goes and stuff, right?
Yep.
So like him getting that 10-yard split at 1.5 seconds, I think that was pretty impressive too. So I think that was a good call out for you, that Max Harrison.
There's a lot of guys, and listen, I'm not saying he's gonna bump his way into. He might have been a first round selection for a team, regardless of what he did today. But the numbers that he put up today ain't gonna hurt. That's for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of that, tomorrow we got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers.
Sure.
And without just saying the most exciting guys, who that is competing tomorrow, do you think can maybe affect their stock the most, or who do you think is teetering to where, like, if they have a great day, like who are you excited to see tomorrow that's not just the best guys? Maybe who should we watch? Who should we key on?
I'm gonna suggest, and I'm gonna give you some names. I think this running back class is really, really good. Like really, really good. I have 12, 15 guys with a round 4 grade or higher. That's an awful lot. I would keep an eye, and again, you still don't know who's going to run and who's going to test, so on and so forth. But there's a couple running backs in this class that I think fly way under the radar, and I think tomorrow is going to be a good opportunity that they really boost their stock. Some obscure names, maybe your guys are familiar with, maybe not. LaQuint Allen from Syracuse. I think that guy he's made to play NFL football again. Can stay on the field 3 downs, which I think is a big factor. I'm not saying he's going to be like your traditional workhorse kind of guy, but he doesn't have to, because he's already very well advanced and borderline elite and pass pro, and he can go out and affect the game as a pass receiver. Brees Hall light. Is what I like to call LaQuint Allen. I think he's got a chance to really do some damage tomorrow. There's a big kid out of Miami. His name's Damian Martinez. Again, I'm trying to tie this in. These aren't necessarily pro comps, but
right.
It's a Jets show. So think about a guy as big as Braylon Allen. Because even though he might be shorter, he's only about 6 foot, maybe a little bit taller than 6 foot, but he's going to be 240 pounds. He's a power back. He ran for 1,200 yards this year. Offered 200 plus yards as a receiver. 57 missed forced tackles. Just a guy with just a real big bruiser, good contact balance. But if he can test out athletically, he's a guy who's definitely going to jump up the boards. And then you got listen, the top 12 running backs in this class, however you put them, top 10, top 12, there's going to be guys that are going to be players in the NFL, not just on a roster, but I'm talking about affecting offenses in the NFL very, very quickly, right? In the next, 2 to 3 years, these guys could all be starters. The running back class, there's so much depth and there's so much versatility too. We all know who Ashton Genty is and the type of player he is, You got Travion Henderson, who is like a rocket, man. With the ball in his hand in space, and forget it. Like, he's so good. Omarion Hampton, another name that not a lot of people talk about.
Love him.
Big,
Man.
Another big back. He's agile, plays with really quick, soft feet. Again, he has a chance to be a true 3-down workhorse type running back in the NFL. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, bigger guy. I think he's a little bit more scheme specific. For a bigger guy, it's funny. He's not really, not that he can't run in between the tackles, because he can, because he's going to be about 225 pounds at 6'1", but it's his second gear and his contact balance. You want to put him in a wide zone offense. You pop him in like San Francisco's offense, where it's one cut and go and get vertical. There's, he's probably up there with one of the best in the class as well. And there's so many guys, like I said, there's going to be guys that are taking the 3rd, 4th round that are going to come in and play a lot of snaps really early in the career. And then 2 years from now, these are going to be the real, the guys in this class are going to take over for the Joe Mixons, are going to take over for the Najee Harrises, are going to take over for the Christian
Derrick
McCaffrey
Henry
going forth. Yeah. Like this is the next wave of really, really good running backs. And again, this is a part. Sorry if you hear my dogs barking, I apologize, but
it's okay, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell people, man, this is YouTube. It's not ESPN.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah,
but we got, just like anyone else. I got a nice, not nice. I mean, I got like just about an acre property, and I got woods behind me. So I got foxes and all those things down there. So my one dog sees or hears something, and it's on. So anyhow, I digress. The one thing that people don't like to realize, and I say this all the time, is that you don't have to draft a guy and expect him to play right away, right? And most NFL teams are drafting a guy for what's happening 2 years down the road, right? That's where the projection is going to be. Where is he going to be 2 years from now, right? You look at the teams that have continued success in the league, right? They're the team like the Baltimores of the world, Buffaloes. Not only do they have the quarterback, yes, it's obviously important, but they build pipelines, man. They have guys, they draft guys, not necessarily for need right here, right now, but for a need that they foresee 2 years from now, right? That's why Baltimore can trade all their offensive linemen and still go 14-3, because they got the next man up ready to go.
Hey, yeah, and you were touching on that. You were talking about that running back class, and I'm with you, man. I love this running back class. Like, like I said, I'm not deep in the film like you are or whatever, but I see the games. I watch college football every Saturday. I sit there with my friends and watch college football. We love it, man. Even if it's not WVU playing it, whoever, we still love it. Few guys that you didn't mention that could be like mid-rounders that I liked was like Jordan James, Cam Skatiba. Is it Skatiba or
Scattaboo?
Anyway, yeah. And then speaking of dogs, I thought this guy was going to be the next Breece Hall as of like a year or two ago. Ollie Gordon, I think he's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him this last season, but the previous couple seasons he was a stud, man. So
yeah, there's so many of them, man, and it's crazy. But yeah, like, listen, Scatabo is he's kind of like that lunch pail guy. Like, he's easy to root for. You watch him bouncing off guys like a pinball in the college playoff games. The reality is, and again, just my opinion only, that Scadaboo, he's not running. There's a reason he's not running, because he's probably 4'6", 4'7" guy. He might find his niche as a short yardage back. He might find his niche as kind of a third down guy who can come in and kind of do a little bit of everything. But he's just athletically, he's just going to be limited. Like, probably a really good college football player. Don't know how it translates. Don't know how his athleticism and his skill set are going to translate to the NFL. That's just being honest. But like a guy who will lay his body on the line and not give a fuck, that's also Cam Scadaboo. Like, he doesn't try to, he can run around you, but I think he would prefer to run through you. So there's something to like about those kind of players, right?
Oh,
You know what? His name too. I see it all the time, but it's just a catchy name. It's just a great,
Yeah, and listen, I'm not to sound funny here, but I'm speaking honestly. Like, there's something to say about those big clunky white running backs, right? They always seem to get a little bit of extra love. So
Mike Allstott, baby.
yeah. So you talked about Jordan James. I think Jordan James is. I'm surprised he's not getting as much love as the rest of this class. Now, if I'm being honest and I'm just going by my grades, he didn't grade out very well for me. I got a day 3. I got a round 5 grade on him. He's the 18th player in the class, and that for me is kind of parallels how deep this class is, because I think Jordan James is going to be a pretty damn good football player. I just don't know if he's got, he's got limited reps in the passing game. Now, the Oregon offense is a unique one itself. Like, they didn't really feature the running back so much. I think tomorrow is going to be really important for him, because on film he shows nothing more than just average athleticism. And for him being smaller guy, he's going to probably, come in under 5, probably around 5'10", maybe a little smaller, around 200 pounds. It's an average athlete, doesn't do anything to an elite level. And some of that really showed on tape. I just don't know, like, if you don't have, if there's not that one outstanding trait that you have that makes you special, you'll end up going in the 4th and 5th round, especially in a deep running back class like this. Now, Ollie Gordon, different story too, because like you said, like he was coming into this season like last year. If you look back in the summer, I think he was in everyone's top 3 running backs for the class, and he put up numbers, man. He put up numbers, 1,700 yards, another 350 on the another 350 in the air. He had just under 100 missed forced tackles last year. He's a big body. He plays physical. I think he plays, really with really good elite vision. I think the contact balance can be a little bit better. Like, he kind of runs over his toes. So, if you get hit hard, and these guys hit hard, obviously, but, if you get pushed off your line from the side and you got all your weight forward, it's really hard to keep your balance and keep going there. But, for him, what's going to get him is, I don't know if he has that second gear, right? Again, maybe a really good college football player that comes in and finds a role, but, not, having inconsistent hands, not really offering a lot in pass pro. He wasn't asked to do it. Not his fault. Just wasn't. I just don't, and not having that gear, that true NFL speed. I don't know what type of role is going to carve out other than like maybe the weak side of a running back by committee, set.
Facts.
Yeah.
These guys in the chat will burn me at the stake if I don't get to some of their questions. Real quick, there'll be quick hitters. Thoughts on Demetrius Knight?
Big, physical. Again, another guy who has gone through the gamut. 25 years old. he's going to be 25 years old at the time of the draft. So he played 3 colleges, 6 years in college, so on and so forth. But like I said, I think he's, plays physical, plays downhill inside the tackle box. I think there's a lot to like about his game. Like, it kind of reminds you at 245 pounds, 6'2", kind of reminds you of like your old school kind of, I'm talking like 80s style linebacker where they're just big and lunky and you're not going to run by him kind of thing. Definitely not the best, not the most fluid mover, doesn't flip the hips, not going to really help you or could hurt you a little bit in pass in pass coverage and pass protection. Not a guy that's going to line up and be able to cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield, so on and so forth. But can help you obviously solidify, your run defense and the run fits, can help you, has some upside as a blitzer as well. Just not very, not the modern day linebacker, kind of like an old school 3-4 inside linebacker type, not the kind of guy that's going to move very good sideline to sideline, a guy that plays within the phone booth, within the tackle box, and really hits it hard.
Good intel there, Dom. One more. I got Jamari Caldwell, and then I have another question about Tyler Warren on the back end.
Jamari Caldwell, another Oregon Duck, kind of flew a little bit under the radar for me in his film study. Got a 4th round grade on him. For the Jets, I think it's a great fit, right? Because he can be your true one tech. He can be that big 2-gap and run stuffer that plays next to Quinnen Williams, that I think is a perfect complement to what Quinnen Williams is. He's 340 pounds. He moves ridiculously good. He's got this little pass rush arsenal where he can push and pull and shed blockers real quick and affects the game, disrupts games disrupts plays in the backfield all the time. He's a menace. Measured out really, really short arms. I think that's going to hurt his overall draft stock. Because again, remember, if he's got 31-inch arms and he's playing against an offensive lineman that has 34.5-inch arms, we don't think of it as all that much, and it's not the be all end all, but there's a distinct advantage. I think that he probably starts his NFL career as a 2-down guy, with the upside to play in passing situations too and getting at the passer. But yeah, I mean, I like Jamar Caldwell a lot. I think he does well. He's kind of short, low to the ground, low hipped, so he wins the leverage battle a lot. Fires off the ball quick, so there's a lot to like about his game. I just think some of the limitations that he's going to have, especially with the arm length, and really are going to cause him some issues at the next level.
Fair. One more, Dom, and then we'll start getting you out of here if that's cool. I got one that says Joe Blewett has said, and Joe Blewett we all, I'm sure, respect around here. Good sure. Guy. He said that Tyler Warren showed 0 effort on some plays. Dom, have you seen anything like that from him? And if you did, does it concern you? I guess he's talking about like taking plays off.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I think outside of the trenches, right? And I shouldn't even say that. Outside of the offensive line, the reality, I'm not justifying, I'm not condoning or justifying this for Tyler Warren. But the reality is that you're going to have reps sometimes where, the play is going opposite, you're not involved in it. You're just going to kind of take it off. Again, not condoning it, not the best look. There's definitely plays where Tyler Warren does it. I don't know if it's something that's like super systemic that would cause concern. But yes, there stuff like that is on film. I think if it was more of a problem, and if you didn't see what Tyler Warren did 95% of the time, where he's given, max 110% effort, I think it might be more of a concern. But listen, if he's lined up as the big slot and it's a toss play that's going around the other end, and he kind of just like half-asses it to the second level or something like that, I guess it's going to happen. Like, that guy was 42% of the offense. He had 42% of the target share and touches for Penn State. So, he was gassed. So to your question, and again, I'm not condoning that, but I'd
Everybody
be
does
lying.
it.
I'd be lying if I said it didn't. It didn't happen. I'd be more concerned if it was on a play that was meant where you were either involved in, the route structure, like you were running a pattern, or if it was a play that was, in your area, in one of your gaps, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Daniel, do you have anything last minute on your list you want to hit before we send Dom out?
Buddy, I could talk to Dom all night.
I know, same here, man.
Stuff, but nothing. I got the main stuff out of the way that I really wanted to hit on for sure. Dom, it's been excellent, dude. Oh, actually, no, there is one last thing I want one last thing out of you,
Shoot.
Dom, before we start wrapping things up and stuff. You went into the running backs, right? Because you said love the running backs of this class.
Yes, sir.
There is another position that I know I've heard you say that you're a fan of this class, and that is tight end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Other than Tyler Warren, I don't know shit about anybody else in this class.
Mm-hmm.
When the Oregon dude went off today, I'm like, who's this? Like, I didn't even know his name. To be honest with you. So obviously he's athletic. You said some praises about him earlier. Definitely going to keep an eye on him. Aside from him and Tyler Warren, you want to give us some other guys that you're keeping your eye on that you kind of like the tape of a little bit in this class?
Yeah, for sure. Again, this class is deep, and the interesting part of this class is that there's so many different types of tight ends, right? You got your big dogs, you got your all-around guys. You got your all-around guys like Tyler Warren, and Gunnar Helm is another guy who I think is pretty versatile. I know he didn't test very well at all today, taking that with a grain of salt, like I said, because I'm going to trust what I see on film, and you see a guy on film who's a lot better than what he showed in underwear today on the turf at in Indy. So he's a guy I think that can play. He's probably a better blocker in line than Tyler Warren, Gunnar Helm, that is. Maybe not as prolific as a pass catcher, but with definite pass catching upside. I can see his career trajectory kind of being like Mark Andrews. We think of Mark Andrews the stud in Baltimore, right? We don't remember that Mark Andrews was a 3rd-round pick, and was one of 2 tight ends that they took, the second of 2 tight ends. Actually, I think he might have been a 4th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. They took 2 tight ends that draft, and he just developed. They thought he was good enough, and they saw something in him. I kind of see that in Gunnar Helm. Mason Taylor's another guy, kid out of LSU. He's actually Jason Taylor, former Jet legend, Jason Taylor's son. A big body, 6'5", 255.
Jet legend.
Yeah, Jet legend. 255. Definitely more of your seam splitter, more of your receiving type, your receiving type tight end. Can help you in line. That's just not really what he does good. He doesn't block very well at the point of attack. I like him as in an H-back role, if you want him as a lead blocker to kick out a defensive end. He does that very well. He can veer off into the second level and wall off those linebackers very well, but just at the point of attack, he's just not really developed. But where he is developed is what he can do with the ball in his hands. And, he's a really good, I think he's a really good, true inline receiving threat. Right. And then you get some of the specialists. I refer to them as specialist tight ends. Guys that probably aren't going to play a lot in line. The Harold Fannons of the world, the Elijah Arroyos, the Jake Bringenstools, where these guys are Rondé Gadsden out of Syracuse is another one, where these guys are pass catching weapons in the mold of not player comps, but just think of the player types like Mike Gesicki, like who's the guy in Jacksonville? Why can't I think of his name? He was a New York Giant. Who's a tight end in Jacksonville? Somebody help me in the chat.
Yeah. Shoot.
Engram.
Yes,
Engram.
Evan Engram. In that mold where they're receivers first and foremost, and they're not going to really help you in line, or probably won't line up in line very well. But what they can do in creating mismatches against either smaller nickelbacks or safeties, or being faster than the linebackers. They can help you in the receiving game. I mean, I don't think we have to talk about how good of a receiver Harold Fana Jr. was this year. These are guys that I think are going to be not very. They might not be high on all teams' boards, especially teams that covet or really kind of lean towards those true inline type guys. But those are guys that I think are going to be effective weapons in an offense right from the jump. And then there's a couple guys, one of them being one of my favorites. You talk about like Dane talked about like my guys before. This is one of my guys. His name's Jackson Hawes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Probably not. I mean, I got to know him a little bit in Mobile. We sat down and we chatted for a good 10, 15 minutes, which for me, outside of getting to see like these guys compete the best for the best, like for me, it's the time that I get with these guys to talk to them. The
best part.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And Jackson Hawes is, again, not a guy that everyone's gonna covet. He's and he'll tell you, and he told me flat out, like he's like, my job is to be an extension of the offensive line. Like I want to run through, I want to cause pain. I'm a blocker first. Like, man, there's not that type of guy around. And he's got sneaky hands, he's got sneaky athleticism, like he moves pretty well. But that's not what you're bringing him on the field for. You're bringing him on the field if you want to really establish set the tone and establish the run, and you line him up next to your left tackle, your right tackle, and you just have him bowl people right the fuck over. So Jackson Hawes,
where does he look to go?
He'll be a day 3 guy.
Okay.
Like I said, because of the skill set being pretty typecasted as a true blocking type tight end. Like, you're talking about a guy whose ceiling is tight end 2, right? Think Will Dissly. Think I'm trying to think of some other big blocking tight ends. The guy Washington in Pittsburgh. Think that type of guy.
We need one too.
We absolutely do. Like I said, this is the year, guys. Jets fans, this is the year to double up on the defensive line, whether it's 2 D tackles, a D tackle on an edge, 2 edges, and double up at the tight end room. Right?
That's awesome.
The talent is just there for the picking. So if you went and got yourself a Mason Taylor or a Harold Fana and then backed it up in the 5th round, 6th round, and took a guy like Jackson Hawes, like, home run, complete, room complete, in my opinion.
Real quick, you talked glowingly about the running backs. Of course, we don't need one. However, I've been very vocal on this channel the last month in saying that if anyone calls with any picks before day 3 for Brees, meaning like a 3rd, a late 3rd, even an early 4th, I would consider parlaying him. What do you think? Are you a proponent of, hey, maybe you can sign him now for cheap and have him 3 years for like 75% wages? Do you let him walk for a comp pick, or do you go get his replacement right now?
Well, I think you could do both, right? And I'm going to say this, and the Jets have tons of holes, and if you look at any positional group in particular, you'd probably say the most secure one is the running back room, but is it? And this is the question I'm going to pose to you, but is it? And let me explain why. And I'll preface that by saying, undoubtedly, Breece Hall is my favorite New York Jet. I love Breece Hall. I absolutely love Breece Hall. I also don't think that the Jets are going to extend Breece Hall or give him a big money contract. However, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to deal him. Listen, if you get a Godfather deal and it's too good to pass up, yeah, like anybody, I don't care if you get a Godfather deal for anyone, you got to, a smart GM's going to think about it. But for me, again, we're still going to figure out. We still don't know exactly what Tanner Engstrom is going to be. Everyone thinks he's going to be a Ben Johnson clone, and I don't necessarily do. I think he's going to take some principles and some stuff that he learned on working under Ben Johnson, but I think this is going to be Taylor Engstrom's offense, and it's definitely going to be West Coast based, and I'm assuming it's going to be more of an outside wide zone scheme and a little bit more, a little bit less of the power inside zone that they ran last year. And who would have thunk? Our offensive line outside of Simpson really wasn't built to run that power stuff. They didn't do a good job. I love Joe Tippmann. Been a big fan of Joe Tippmann since his days in Wisconsin. Also been pretty adamant to saying that I think that Joe Tippmann is a very good center. I think he could be an even better guard. I think Joe Tippmann is underutilized. His best work is done in space, and his movement skills are so good. At 6'6.5", he loses the leverage battle, which is why he's not very an effective power blocker. He's very good at, he's good in space. You see him out in screens all the time, leading, mowing people down. You see him pulling on backside traps and stuff like that. But, in a phone booth, when he's got Dexter Lawrence on his, right, looking him square in the eyes, he doesn't win a lot of those battles. So, our brain trust in Todd Downing and Nate Hackett kept trying to force a square peg into a round hole, which is why I think Breece Hall isn't really that type of running back either. You're running behind a scheme, behind a line that's not really meant for that scheme, with a running back who's not really meant for that scheme. Not good things are going to happen. Ideally, I'd like, you want to get Breece Hall the ball in space. You want to give him the opportunity on his own to plant his foot and get vertical, right? And I'm thinking that's a lot what Engstrom's going to want to do, which is, I think, going to benefit Breece. And plus, Breece is such a good receiver as well.
I heard that.
Yeah.
That he can catch a little bit.
He's such a good receiver. To me, if you give him my options, I'm not ruling out drafting a running back, because if you're not going to extend Breece, and you have Braylon there, but I think we all know what Braylon is. Braylon's kind of that short yardage back. He's I don't know if he's ever going to be a workhorse. He can grind out some yards and do all that stuff. And Isaiah Davis, another guy that I like. However, Isaiah Davis was a 6th-round pick under a new regime. That might not be his guy. Like, there's no guarantee that his roster spot's secure. So for me, I keep Breece Hall. I run the brakes right off of him this year, and I have my pipeline running back ready to step in if I move on from Breece next year.
Maybe someone calls you at the trade deadline too.
That's right. If the Jets are sitting, listen, if they're sitting at 6-3 at the trade deadline, maybe you decide to keep them. If they're sitting at 3-6. Maybe it's you decide to move them, but
Facts.
Again, I wouldn't rule out of the big four of 2022. He's definitely 4th on the board in the sense of most important, or the guy that I want to keep. But again, he's my favorite player on the Jets, so I'd hate to see it personally. Like, selfishly, I'd hate to see him gone. But realistically, I don't think that I don't think that Breece Hall is long for a second contract. I don't think you need to move him. However, anything can be had for the right deal.
And you need capital too. I mean,
yeah, I just don't know. Listen, I honest to God, I just don't know what he would net in a return. You know what I mean? If you told me you could get a 2nd-round pick for Breece, I think you'd do it. I don't think you're getting anything close to a 2nd-round pick.
If they used him right, his value could still be very high. But the
very young
sad part,
he's only 24.
Good point.
Yeah.
Last one, real quick. I'm sorry, Dan. No, Daniel, go ahead. You've been quiet a while.
No, I was going to say, and you see like good teams. I was just going off what Dom was saying. You see good teams do this all the time, man. They draft a guy and they run the balls off of him for 4 or 5 years, and they just let him go. You know,
The
they
running
give
back, the running back position is unfortunately that's what it is these days. It's wash, rinse, and repeat, which is why it's rare to see running backs taken in the first round these days. Because they know that this is going to be a guy that we're gonna draft now. We're gonna look to add his replacement in the draft in the next year or two, and then when his contract's over, gone. Listen, if Brees Hall kills it this year, I should say. Like, could they offer him a short-term extension? Maybe. But I highly doubt it, considering that they're going to have to, pay some big money to Garrett and Sauce, and I think that's going to be their priority. I would guess Garrett and Sauce get extensions. Jermaine Johnson, if he comes back and shows that he's healthy from that Achilles, will get the 5th-year option before they have to make a decision on him, and they move on from Brees. That's how I would.
AVT though,
big season for AVT right here. Got to remember.
Do you like him at a tackle?
I'm not upset. I wouldn't be upset about it. And
Okay.
if I'm AVT, I might. This is the year that I might want to play tackle. Because if he shows out at tackle, there's a much better chance of him getting paid better money in free agency if he reaches free agency. But again, AVT is going to be 27 years old now. Offensive linemen don't fall off the cliff at that age, but he's probably got one more big contract or a couple small contracts left in him. So he's going to be playing for his life right here, right now. So,
Dom, this was a real treat, man. I look forward to this all week, and I appreciate you joining us. I really do. What do you think,
my
Daniel?
pleasure, dude. I can listen. You guys are the best, man. I'll happy to come on and shoot the shit whenever, bro. For real.
Appreciate you, man. Maybe something close to the draft. We'll either maybe right after get your evaluation on how we did.
You guys you just reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me.
I got you.
Just reach out to me and listen. Friday night's usually good, and if it's not, I'll tell you that it's not. That works too.
Works.
But
yeah,
happy to hop on, man. It's my honest to God, it's my pleasure. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it. Hey, why don't you tell us? You have something coming up? You working on? Dude, you're all.
You know what? I got so much coming up. So I'm actually part of a. I'm writing on the tight end group. As a matter of fact, I'm actually putting out my top 20 scouting reports for the tight end group for a published draft guide. That will be out April 1st. I'll once I got all the details on that, I'll get that to you guys. If just a bunch of different kind of I'll call it what it is, lower level draft guides, draft analysts who reached out and got asked to contribute. So happy to contribute to a draft guide. And like I said, I got the tight end, so this is a class that I'm very familiar with, and you'll get to read my scouting reports on the top 20 of these guys. You can always catch me on Monday nights as well, at 9 o'clock and at 10 o'clock. Even though this week I won't be there at 9, I got another I got an outside commitment that I got to go to. But 10 o'clock mock with Green Bean. The best show on YouTube. No offense, Murph and Dano, but that's the best show. It's always been the most fun show, even before I got in front of a camera and started doing content. It's just real interactive with the chat. Green Bean's not only a great host, but he's a great guy. So it's always a lot of fun to work with him. So that's Monday night. It's called the 10 o'clock mock on the Talking Jets Network, where I do a lot of draft analysis for as well. So yeah, you're going to see me. And I don't say this with ego. It's just like, I got spots on 1,000 different shows from here to April. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be seeing me, man.
Hey, your own channel?
I do have my own channel. I even forgot about that. Project Prospect with Dom C on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, truth be told is
link in the description.
With all these other commitments that I've been involved in, I've kind of let my own channel not go to the waste, but not as active as I should be. So the link's in the description. You want to subscribe and find draft content year round. That's the spot to do it as well.
Hey, thanks, Dom. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, man. It was great getting with you guys, for real.
I'll see you on Twitter. I'm sure Daniel will too.
All right, brothers.
All right, later.
See you, Dom.
What a guy. Dude, that's like a bucket list, man. I think we're ticking that off.
Yes, absolutely. I was like you said, all week I was super excited to have Dom on, man, and he came on and crushed it just like I thought he would. I nailed him right off the bat. I'm like, here's 8 receivers. Tell me about them, and he just killed it.
Dude, and dude, he talked for like on the first 4 he talked, and then he remembered the next 4 still. Like he had them at elephant memory.
And what even the top? I ruled out the top 2, and he still So yeah, Dom is excellent. He really does put the work in on the draft, and he loves it. He's got a passion for it, and that's something I can respect for sure. I came away knowing a lot more than I came into the show for sure.
It's the kind of episode like don't get me wrong, love our channel, but like there are some live streams that I'm like, okay, I don't need to rewatch that, but this one I think is one that I'll be referencing. I want to go like down the list this weekend and jot some of these names down he mentioned, because like when you're just talking, I can't, but now I can check back later and say, oh, that's the guy,
Yeah, I typed 2 names down in my notes, but I missed all the others. I'm definitely going to rewatch so I can, look into some of these guys and stuff.
Good questions from the chat as well. We were able to slip a few in there at the end that really helped. Harlan chiming in. He says he did hit the like button and he subscribed. He also went and subscribed to Dom C's channel. Just a reminder, it's down there. All you gotta do is expand that description. You got Dom's YouTube channel there. Look at that. Dom's YouTube and his Twitter, which if you know Dom, he's most active on his Twitter. And then everything else kind of branches out of that. But if you follow his Twitter, you get pretty much all his nuggets. So it's pretty nice. But yeah, man, is there anything? I mean, we kind of he gave us longer than I thought. So like we could really wring that sponge out. But is there anything like you found interesting, he said, or anything you disagreed with? Like, what's your first thoughts on that interaction with Dom?
I mean, he killed it. One thing that I need to go back and look over. Like, I don't want to disagree with a guy like Dom that's really
right.
But I do think that Ollie Gordon does have a second gear. I think he has that second level speed. WVU's Big 12 team. I watch Big 12 football. Oklahoma State's a Big 12 team, so I've seen a lot of Ollie Gordon. And I've seen him just tearing through our defense. So,
is he running tomorrow?
That would be one thing I disagree with. His receiver evaluations. Whenever I hit him with those 8, he killed it, and a lot of it was how I was feeling too. Like I like Tez Johnson, but yeah, the weight, like how the small the frame is and stuff, that is definitely a worry. Like Trey Harris is a guy that's pretty high up on my list. Jaden Higgins and stuff, like those are guys that I like a lot. So I was step with him on a lot of that.
Good point too, because like I was worried that if we didn't take Tet at 7, that we wouldn't really find like that big contested catch guy, but like your exercise of throwing him 8 names already like yielded 2 other options at 42, 3 that would fill that mold that we are gonna need. I mean, even if you take Tyler Warren, you're still gonna need that outside perimeter contested catch guy. I don't know, man. The more I think about it, like the more that I think that, is it crazy for me to say that, because like think about it, tight end at 7, but I'm starting to think that Tyler Warren might be the safest pick. Is that crazy? Like, because like the dude is just a football player. Like,
He said for a guy that goes out and he gives, like, he does it all. Like, he's willing to do whatever and he does it all. Like, if you want to direct snap me the ball and I'll run with it, sure, no problem. Like, and he does it all well. Like you said, he's a football player, and so I am intrigued by Tyler Warren. I wasn't crazy about the idea at 7. I'd love to move back to like 11 or something and get him, but
yes.
But like you said, I've been high on the Tet McMillan at 7 thing, but talking to Dom tonight, open my eyes up. Like, if we don't take a receiver at 7, it's not the end of the world, So I'm starting to open my horizons a little bit.
Same with interior defensive line. If we don't get Graham, we're not screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got Shamar Stewart and all these other guys on the edge, yeah, but like IDL, from what I hear, is like the deepest in the whole draft.
Yeah, I mean, big holes for us is where the draft is deep, and you can't ask for anything better, right? So.
Like, I think Chaos said it last week, the stars are aligning because, like, our biggest needs are the deepest parts of the draft, which is nice. And that's why I posed the question to the chat earlier. I'm like, if there's a position group that you want, like, if we had to double up on one position group, and I want to ask you, Daniel, because Dom answered later in the episode. I don't even think he saw the chat, but, like, he answered. He said tight end was one of 2 that he would, defensive tackle and tight end are the 2 that he would double up on. Mm-hmm. What position group? And it doesn't have to be with pick 7 and then a later one, which is what I was thinking at tight end. But like, what would you double up on?
I mean, those are very valid positions to double up on. Receiver, you can't ever have enough receivers. So to me, doubling up on receiver, even if you don't go at 7, but you go, 2nd round and 5th round or whatever, get a couple guys with some talent. Why not?
Rich Sports Talk. We had him on about a month ago. He said, and that's the trade partner I think is the best suited for us. I know I'd rather slide to 12, but if we just slide to 9, I know, Daniel, it's not going to grab us a 2, but it'll grab us a 3, maybe a 3-4. If we slid to 9, like, because that's the thing, everybody's saying there's not enough blue chippers for people to want to trade up. But if you're at 9 and you have no shot at a blue chipper and you can climb just to say someone falls in our lap, Mason Graham, right here, Rich is saying, if Mason Graham falls to us, it opens the door for us to slide and not slide very far. What do you think of that prospect? 40% of the fan base will be rioting and because they want Graham. But
yeah, dude, I'm not. I'm just greedy. That's why I want my 2. Okay, like, I'm just greedy. Let's be honest. I would not be mad at a 3rd and a 4th or 4, whatever it may be. I do think we need extra picks this year. I think we need extra picks next year too, to be honest. Maybe more so.
Maybe we need Malachi Corley to do something too, and
that would definitely help. Speaking of stars aligning, though, man, I mean, we had Nolan Rich Sports Talk on, we had Dylan Terriman on, Chaos, Dom C. We got Woody on next week, guys. I mean, the lineups have been crazy. We've been pumping out some pretty good shows here, man.
Damn straight. Sub it up, guys. And tonight, you guys in the chat were rewarded for staying subscribed, because there are some people out there that subscribe just for a couple hours just to chat in these streams. Tonight, with Dom C, I made it so that you had to be a subscriber of this channel for the last 6 days. So if you were chatting tonight, you are one of our beloved, and you guys brought it, man. You brought it. So stay subscribed. Because, like Daniel said, we got Woody.
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 Woody,
Love the guy.
Woody,
Dude,
rockin'
if you've seen Boy Green's channel, Woody, you know Woody. Even if you don't realize it, you know him. He's on next week, and you're right, man. I was always nervous about having like big hitters, and because also like I don't like everyone that's a big hitter, so like I've been selective. But I think everyone we've had on, man, have crushed it. Crushed it.
yes. We've definitely had some good ball talk, you know. Yeah, I love
Facts. That's the other thing. Like we stick to it. So like we're not gonna have 1 million subscribers because we're for like the real Jet fans that want to just talk ball. And that's what we're going to do again next week. So we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, guys. If you have final questions, whether it's for, about Dom stuff, or maybe you have the same question that you posed to Dom, you want us to re-answer, put them in the chat. Daniel, what, I guess like a month ago, I asked you, I don't know. So like, I don't know, man, because I was dead set over Tet, and now that he's not running, like I'm sad, man. I wanted to see the dude run, bro. I wanted to see him run tomorrow so bad. So like now,
from pro day. I mean,
I don't know. There's just there. So the last week or so, I've seen like 20%, maybe 15% of our fan base poo-pooing Tet, and for nothing more than they're calling him slow. And now he has no chance to prove them wrong. So that's, I guess, what I wanted the most, is to prove to those guys that, hey, you don't have to be a track and field superstar, but you give us a 4.6, 4.58, a 4.54. That's good. That's good for me. Now we're just going to have to roll for the next 2 months, or maybe a pro day. Maybe he'll run. I don't know, but I doubt it. So do you think I'm making too much? Do you think me or they are making too much out of his speed when his contested catch is good? His body is 6'5".
You're both making too much out of it. If you're slow, I don't even care, as long as you still produce on the field. And I think that he still can, even if he is slow. I think that his hands are excellent. I think he's got a great vertical. He knows how to high point the ball. That alone is enough. But he's also crafty. He's a very underrated route runner, especially deep in the routes too. Like maybe not so much right off the line, but deeper in the routes, he's crafty, man. So sometimes that's all it takes.
Facts. Mike Evans was a 4.5, 4.53. If he is high 4.5s, that would have been fine. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna need to sit down and literally watch some all 20, because in my opinion, I think that it's 3 guys. And maybe there's a dark horse that falls, or maybe I'm not seeing something. But I really do think it's Graham, Tet, and Warren. Those are the 3. I think we're taking one of those 3. We might even be posed with all 3, but I think one of those 3 are a Jet. And okay, maybe Tet would be awesome, but Tyler Warren, I think, would fill more of the meat on the bone for us, like, because we don't even know what's going on at right tackle. He's an excellent inline blocker, but you could also go Tet and get a Dawes later down the line. But I think we're going to need a tight end. We're going to need a receiver in this draft. What order you do them in is up to you. So we'll see. It's going to be a 2-month slow burn.
Yeah. Scott nailed it right in the chat. Larry Fitzgerald, my favorite wide receiver of all time, ran a 4.63.
He's a beast.
Probably soon to be Hall of Famer.
I can't believe he ran that. But I don't know, man. Nowadays, they're all trained for the track meet. Like, these guys have actually been running 40s for 6 months, you know? So, like, was Larry? You know?
I don't know.
He played faster. I'll tell you that. Harlan chirping in here. He says, at first, I wanted the Jets to draft Graham. But if Jets could get a deal, get extra picks, they could draft Grant, who I think would be a better fit. And I've been hearing this a lot too. Both these defensive tackles played next to each other at Michigan. Two different types of players. Dom said that he questioned Graham's fit next to Quinnen. I wish we would have asked him about Grant's fit next to Quinnen. I think that's a little better. But you see Grant going anywhere from 18 to 35, and I don't think he's going to get that far. I think he'll be sooner rather than later. But yeah, good.
I liked the fit of Grant better than Graham because I felt like he was more the run stuffing type, right?
Okay.
I noticed when I was looking through all the combine numbers earlier, when it comes to like defensive tackles and stuff, I want to see how strong they are. So I look at bench press, and it's not, it doesn't necessarily mean everything. He was one of the lowest. Grant was one of the lowest bench press numbers. He was only had 22 reps on bench. And
what a pipsqueak.
Yeah, with 300 pounds. Dude, I've hit 20 before at 220.
Yeah.
I'm not bragging, and I couldn't do it right now. I'm not as in shape as I was, 6 months ago when I did that. But dude, training for the combine and stuff, and you're like 300 some pounds, and you can't hit 28.
Yeah, percentage of body weight. That's like me lifting up like a sack of potatoes. Like, come on, bro.
Exactly. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean he's not strong. It could just mean he doesn't have much muscle stamina, which is also a red flag. So I don't know. Maybe I overthink that a little bit, but I just.
Well, Dom alluded to it too. He's like, there's two schools of thought. Are you drafting the guy that's walking in the door day one, or are you drafting the guy that's going to be walking in year 3, 4, 6? What do you think the guy can become for you versus what, you know what I mean? And we have time. Like it or not, we have time. So I would sacrifice a little bit right now to get a guy if they think that under Glenn's tutelage he'll become more. I would do that. So yeah, it's just an idea. Like we aren't win now. Win now teams have to draft differently than what we ought to be drafting like this year.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, the more that trade back option sounds better and better, man. Like, would I be upset with like I would actually be happy with Ted, but like, would I be upset with Mason Graham? Probably not. I'm not sure how well the fit works, but I'm like, okay, talented defensive tackle. Let's see how it goes. Would I be upset with one of these edges like Pierce Jr. or whatever? Like, no. Yeah. But trading back, you can probably get a similar caliber player and some extra picks, and I feel like we need all we can get right now. So
We do. It's going to be interesting. We got free agency coming. We got 5th-year options. We've got all kind of shit happen in the next couple weeks, couple months. Daniel, I think we'll leave it here. What are you thinking?
Yep, I think so. We did a lot of draft talk tonight. Of course, if you got Dom on, you're going to do some draft talk. Next week, I imagine we'll probably get pretty heavy into some free agency talk, a lot of what ifs and where to go from here, what to do, because we're creeping right up on that negotiation period. And I know Woody's been doing his homework on some free agents. So hopefully we can get some good talking next week on that, and I'm excited for that. And I'm excited because we just had a good show, man. Having Dom on was excellent. Chat was killing it. Appreciate
Damn
you
straight.
guys.
I'm with you, man. And that's one thing we haven't hit, man. So that's perfect segue to have Woody next week, free agency, man. So, chat, have a good night. Daniel, have a good night, man. Always a pleasure with you. Cheers, brother. We'll go out to the outro, man. Chat, catch you later.
I love the show. I love you guys. Fucking, let's go Jets. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.
We can't all be beautiful.
You're in the danger zone.